Joining us this morning, Coach Blashill. Please let us know if you'd like to ask a question. We'll start with Danielle Bruce.
Coach, I've asked you about this before, just kind of the inconsistencies in trying to teach a young team consistencies, whether that be from game to game or even in the same game, and being able to hold the third period lead and not take the penalties. How much of that can you just attribute to the fact that your team is young? Is that all just part of the learning curve of a rebuilding team?
Yeah, it's certainly part of the learning curve. I think part of being a young player is learning how to be consistently probably really good defensively, number one. And if you do that, you don't end up giving up some of those leads. You don't take some penalties. You don't get in tougher situations. And I also think it's just part of the understanding the difference between the NHL and pretty much every level these guys they've played at before here, is they could get away with not being at their best and still have a positive impact on the game. At this level, the discrepancy in talent is so minimal that doesn't happen for almost any player. There's a couple players in the league that can get away with it, but not very many. And so you have to train your body, train your mind, how to be on top of your game every single night. And that's a learned process. It takes time.
And obviously there have been a bunch of positive moments, most recently playing against Tampa. That was a good game. The game against New York was a good game. What do you take away? Like, what are the positives that you take away and try to bring over as you move forward?
Well, I think, obviously those are two teams, the way Tampa's the defending cup champions back to back. The Rangers, I think with the trade deadline acquisitions, have made themselves a real cup contender with the current players they have and those trade acquisitions. So, I think it shows that when we're playing really good hockey, we go head to head with the best in the league. Certainly in both cases, we had a lead late and we didn't win the game, but we were in position to win the game. And I think what you want to do every night is put yourself in position to win that game. And then you learn as you go and how to win them. And all honestly, at some point, numbers are on your side. The more you're in those spots and in the lead late, numbers say that you're going to win lots of them. So, I just think we have to draw on the positives in those games and make sure we're learning from our mistakes. Yep.
Max Boltman.
Jeff, I wanted to follow up with you about, you mentioned the power play being at 23% since the end of January the other night. Anything you can point to that's kind of led to that? Did you guys change something there? Or has it just been guys have kind of gotten onto the same page and executed? Well,
I think one thing is, for the most part, a number of those guys have been together for a long time. Obviously with the loss of Robbie Fabry, that changed the units a little bit. With the addition of Verana, that changed the units. But I think chemistry gets built. You look at most of the best power plays in the league, there's been a real consistency of the major key players in it, for the most part. Not all of them, but we just faced one in New York. Those major components have been together for a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years. Certainly in Tampa, they've done that for a number of years, the major components of that power play. And so, the best power plays kind of go on the ice and they almost, they're given a plan, but they're able to react as a 5-man unit together without thinking. And they're just in such unison that they have great success. And I think, certainly with the Larkin unit in particular, that unit's been together for the majority of the season as is, and I think they've been able to build some of that chemistry, some of that knowing where to go without even necessarily having to look. And so I think that's been a positive. I think Alex done a good job over the course of the season of implementing his beliefs and also just building different I guess I don't want to say plays, but kind of either breakouts or building certain things to look for in the ozone that have led to success. And the more you start to build that up, you kind of build your library or catalog of different things you can do to beat opponents depending on what they're doing. So I think certainly chemistry has been a big piece of it.
I felt like I noticed during the last game, guys would kind of switch spots at various times on the power play. Like Raymond would go down below the goal line is that something that was important for you guys to have guys not just kind of static so everyone knew where the puck was headed at a given time?
There's a yes, I would say yes. First off, you don't want to. There's very few power plays in the league that have been really successful being super static. Now, Washington is one that's been extremely static for years, and outside the beginning of this year, they've obviously had great success with it. But most power plays, there has to be some movement in order to create enough confusion to open up lanes or give yourself an advantageous situation. And so, I think building that movement or lack of static into the power play is important. But your other point was where everybody knows where the puck is going. It can't be necessarily just chaos by your group. Everybody's got to be more on the same page and kind of know where the puck's going. And I would say some of that movement is dictated with a game plan from night to night. Let's try this tonight. Let's look for this particular kind of setup tonight. I know Alex did that with a few different things last game, and it proved to be a little bit successful. So the pre-scout part of it is putting in that plan. Here's a couple of things that we're going to look for. Here's where you're going to be when that's the case. Now they got to go out and play hockey, but you definitely want your 5 guys to be on the same page, and to do it without being super static, I think is important.
So it's basically you guys need to know where the puck's going without it being predictable.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
It's predictable to each other, not to the other team.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Trevor Thompson.
Josh Norris is a guy who's close to 30 goals right now, going to have to be accounted for out there tonight. What are you seeing in your film that's allowed him to put up those kind of numbers offensively?
He's a great goal scorer. I think he's been a great goal scorer everywhere he's gone, and I think he's just continued that into the NHL. Speaking to our guys today, we just talked about we've got to make sure we do a really good job of not giving him much space, of making sure we have stick on puck. Not allowing him to get his shot off, to be honest with you, because when he shoots it, it's got a great, obviously high percentage of going in. He's that kind of goal scorer. So, he's got a good line with Batherson and Tkachuk. That's a good line for sure. Tkachuk obviously wins tons of pucks. Not only is he my son's favorite player in the league, maybe, but certainly, he's got my great respect. He's hard. He wins pucks. He does lots of good things. Got good skill. And Batherson's a really good player. Obviously missed some time with injury. So it's a good line, and it's a line that we're going to have to do a good job checking against. And in Norris's case, we got to make sure we don't give him much space to get his shot off.
And you mentioned Batherson a couple of times there. I wanted to follow up with him. What do they get with him back in the lineup after he's been out for so long?
Well, I just think a really good offensive player that fits real good on the line, that has good chemistry. As it fits into the power play well, it gives them more options with rights and lefts in the bumper and the net front. He can share that with Tkachuk, and they kind of go back and forth. And so it just gives them more versatility with a real good player.
And I know you don't make up the schedule, but it's late in the season to be seeing Ottawa for the first time. Now you're going to see them 3 times by the end of the month. Just as far as that quirk in the schedule goes and facing them for the first time, what your thoughts might be. Thanks.
Yeah, it's always a little bit. Yeah, no problem. It's always a little different. You'd love to kind of even it out. The 3 times you see teams over the course of the season, just out of, I guess, I don't know if fairness is the right word, but you kind of see, different teams are have different rosters at different times. These guys have gotten healthier, as the season's gone along, probably. It's just the reality of the course and the schedule sometimes. So, it'll be good to play them. We haven't played them. I know what they do for sure. I know they're going to work and they're going to compete. I know they're going to do those 2 things for sure. And if they're going to make an error, it's going to be out of overworking. And so we're going to have to make sure our work and compete are real high tonight.
Last question, Ted Colfin.
It's a pretty good choice by your son for Tkachuk. It's a little bit under the radar, but that's a really good, solid choice for a favorite.
He spends lots of time on YouTube watching both Tkachuk boys, and so I think they both play great hockey. But in Pee Wee hockey, when you can't check yet, it's not necessarily great role models yet. But I keep telling them, don't worry about those hitting penalties; they'll come in handy later on.
Hey, you mentioned Fabry a little while ago. What did he have the surgery, or what's going on there with Fabs?
He's in the process of it. Yes. So he's I would say he's in the rehab. Let me get a clear take from our medical staff so I can give you, just exactly how it went and make sure, the timeline is the timeline. It's not one yet, and it's going to be a significant amount of time for him to come back. The good thing for Robbie is he knows what to do and how to train and how to get back from these, and still feel really bad for him that he's going through this again, but that sometimes is life, and I think he's got a great attitude and ready to attack it and come back stronger than ever.
So to be clear, it's going to go into next season, obviously. It's
not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. Again, I don't want to put
right.
put a definite time frame on it, but it's going to be right at that edge, if not into it. It's just the reality of it.
Hey, how about 2 other ones, Rowney and Stevens? Are we going to? We're going into the final month of the season here. Are they going to make it into the lineup before the end of the season, you think, or what's the plan there?
I think Stevens will,
Okay.
just, he's practicing with us. He's kind of been, I think gaining confidence. I think he's skating good. He's been in a good spot that way. We just got to get his balance between his two legs back to where he's not putting himself in any kind of risk for other injuries because there's an imbalance. And so it's just going to take a little bit of time that way, but I anticipate him playing rounds. There's a decent chance that rounds will miss the remainder of the season.
You look at Philip Zadina's line here lately, it seems like the minutes have been dwindling a little bit. Is it up to him again to kind of show you he deserves more playing time or whatnot?
Yeah, it's always the chicken or the egg, and certainly from a player's perspective, I think they generally say if you play me more, I'll produce more. And from a coach's perspective, we generally say, play great hockey and you'll play more. There's probably it's somewhere in between in reality. I think I moved Bert back to that Larkin line, so that took an opportunity away potentially. And he's got to play the best hockey he can in the minutes he gets. And if you do that, you grind your way back up. I've had a player, tell me before it's he, that they recognize, and I think players that have been around recognize it's their job to ultimately demand more ice time. And sometimes with young players, that's hard to understand, but that's the reality, and so Phillips just has to play really good hockey, and the better hockey he plays, we're trying to put the guys out there to give us their best chance to win. And so if a guy plays great hockey, good chance he's going to play.
He's got a month to turn it around, but it's fair to say it's kind of been a learning season again for him in a way.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just part of the process of it. It's not easy. It's a hard league. And sometimes it goes really smooth. And even, there's times it goes smooth in year one that doesn't happen in years 2, 3, 4, or 5, whatever. And sometimes it's a grind, and I think in his case, he hasn't been able to necessarily come and have the exact success that he had anticipated. I think, most of us that have been around, excuse me, understand that they're generally going to be hard. I think what you have to do as a player is you got to kind of reassess and say, okay, how can I make myself a commodity? How can I do things that are, better than what other people do? We've seen great examples of that at different times here in Red Wing history, and he's just going to have to keep working to find a way to make himself a real commodity in the hockey team.
Sounds good. Thanks for this.
Yep.
All right.
Thank
Those are
you.
questions over Coach Blashill this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.